The 131st Truskan, known as the Frost Rangers, are a regiment of the Astra Militarum that hails from the frigid world of Trusk. Experts in mountain and Arctic warfare, they are also notable marksmen, possessing many superbly gifted snipers within their ranks. The stalwart tribes of Trusk live a harsh life on their ice world. Almost all Truskans become excellent marksmen out of necessity. Trusk, of course, is most famous for its tough and tenacious Cadian-style regiments, often referred to as the Truskan Snowhounds. However, the Truskan 131st was marshalled from those tribes who chose to live in the most mountainous or high-altitude glaciers of the planet. Constantly experiencing whiteout blizzards with hurricane-force winds and endlessly hunted by the ferocious white monsters that stalk the glaciers, those who managed to thrive in such conditions developed incredibly keen eyesight. This meant that the 131st was uniquely suited for service as an elite light infantry regiment rather than quote-unquote shock troops like the traditional Snowhound regiments. The formation of the 131st Truskan was originally ordered as a part of Commissar Sebastian Jarrick's military expedition to wipe out the Great War of Gaskell Thraka in order to provide some supplementary Arctic biome specialists to the expedition after the Second War for Armageddon. Despite serving with dedication in the frozen mountains with which Truskans are so familiar, the 131st Service under the command of Jarrick's expedition could be called unremarkable at best. The service with Jarrick lasted a mere 4 years before they were diverted away to combat other threats to the Imperium. Placed under the command of a charismatic young colonel, Naerina, it was only after this time that the Truskan 131st began to serve with any particular distinction. Now given over full command of their regiment, Colonel Rinne decided to put these strengths to use. Thus, he reorganized the 131st into a highly efficient force of airborne light infantry capable of engaging from incredible distances with even the most rudimentary weaponry. From that point, the Truskan 131st quickly gained renown for this ability to fight effectively at such extreme range under the cover of powerful air support. Even more, the unusually high number and quality of the 131st snipers quickly impressed their allies. Able to deliver deadly, pinpoint-accurate fire under even most extreme pressure, winds and weather conditions from astounding distances, they earned the 131st its nickname, the Frost Rangers. The regiment's most veteran snipers possess such keen eyesight and marksmanship that they have, on uttermost rarest of occasions, been documented delivering killing shots to renegade commanders before forward-rattling auxilia were in range to engage. Being a light infantry regiment specializing in high-altitude terrain would mean that the 131st deployed very few armored vehicles and possessed only the most rudimentary artillery in the form of handheld mortars. Recognizing this weakness early on in their reformation process, Colonel Rinne called upon a friendship, Group Captain Alexander Taggart of the 752nd Air Support Operations Group of the Aeronautica Imperialis. In the name of the Emperor, Taggart answered to the call of his friend and leveraged his entire Aeronautica Imperialis battle group to be indefinitely attached to the Frost Rangers regiment as well as himself. The Truskan foot soldiers quickly grew appreciative of the powerful air superiority provided by the various squadrons. The 131st Truskan, being a regiment drawn from some more sparse and specific populations on an ice world, for most of its history has been smaller than an average Astra Militarum regiment. Due to a recent increase in fame on Trusk, their numbers have swelled to approximately 15,000. The organization of the 131st, for the most part however, is quite ordinary, with 2 notable exceptions. The regiment is organized into 3 companies of 4,000 regulars, and each company is divided into 3 platoons. 1st and 2nd platoon are regular Truskan guardsmen. A 3rd platoon in each company is always a dedicated corps. Mortars, plasma gunners and grenadiers in 1st, 2nd and 3rd company, respectively. The first exception is an extremely high number of Militarum Auxilia forces operating in attachment to the 131st, including both Bolgren and Rattlings, numbering in several hundreds. This, along with its Aeronautica Imperialis support, is to help supplement the regiment's lack of armoured firepower and artillery. The second exception is a 4th Infantry Company, the so-called Horizon Company, so named for the company's members' ability to supposedly be capable of killing any target under the visible horizon. Every single one of Horizon Company's 2,000 members is a sniper, and not one man or woman in the 131st is permitted to carry a sniper rifle except those who earn a place in Horizon Company. Only those guardsmen who first display exceptional marksmanship in battle amongst their commanders with the standard-issue lasgun are granted either a kinetic sniper rifle or a long-last sniper rifle and given permission to join Horizon Company. Since most Truskans are already exceptional marksmen, this means the members of Horizon Company are deadly hunters indeed. Additional assets, such as the regiment's very few ground vehicles and psychers, are simply kept aside from any official company to be used as direct by the regiment commander. Following these reformations by Colonel Rinne, the 131st would go on to participate in many campaigns against the Xenos, Traitors Astra Militarum regiments, and even, notably, the Forces of Chaos. Indeed, despite acquitting themselves exceptionally well through the course of several relatively minor wars from 950 to 962 M41, an Imperial scribe noted the regiment for their prior disappointing performance during Yarrik's expedition. Deemed particularly expendable, in 963 M41, the 131st received an assignment to participate in the Gehenna Crusade, the invasion of a demon world. Imperial forces were only narrowly defeated, but, as the only Astra Militarum regiment in participation, the Frost Rangers' losses were unsurprisingly devastating. However, after the conclusion of the Gehenna Crusade in 975 M41, Astra Militarum High Command was shocked to discover that the 131st, though severely depleted, had not been entirely destroyed. Lauri Rinne and the remaining veterans who emerged from the campaign were harshly interrogated and heavily reviewed for taints of chaos. Many were executed. Yet Colonel Rinne himself and many more of the survivors were found, notwithstanding the presence of some new mental instabilities, to be surprisingly clean of the influence of chaos. Despite some reservations, the remainder of the regiment was ultimately returned to service and heavily reinforced. Rinne and Frost Rangers were deployed closer to home to combat the innumerable Xenos threats within the beleaguered Caradon sector. Several years were spent in a deadly game of cat and mouse with the Eldar of Craftworld Alatok, Rinne's finest snipers constantly harassing and being harassed by Eldar Rangers across myriad worlds in the sector. Several times, even during unrelated wars and campaigns, the 131st would find itself under ambush by these Eldar, or would otherwise find an opportunity to lay ambush themselves. Colonel Rinne, growing obsessive over this conflict, would never allow such opportunities to go to waste. During one campaign to retake the mining world of Ionis from the Orc Wars which plagued Caradon's sector, the Frost Rangers dispatched a team of scouts to circle around the mountainous battlefield and assassinate the local war boss, Iron Stomper. The team was destroyed by an unusually large force of Alatok's rangers seeking to exact an ancient relic from within nearby mines, but not before the team called in the situation over Vox. Faced with a decision to either complete the campaign against the Orcs or redeploy to assault the Eldar position, Colonel Rinne, in an incredibly audacious and perhaps completely insane gambit, airlifted himself and every sniper within his force over the mountains to ambush the Eldar. As they crossed, the Truskans would decimate Orc air power by opening the doors of their Valkyrie transports and firing thousands of aimed shots at the Orc pilots. All as Rinne shouted taunts to the Orcs and litanies of praise to the Emperor over the squadron Vox casters. Even so, many hundreds of Trusk's finest marksmen and Valkyries were lost. Still, the Eldar were shocked, and then quickly routed by the overwhelming firepower and long-range marksmanship of the Truskans who survived the crossing. Valkyrie-deposited snipers firing down from the mountainous perches left the Eldar with no choice but to abandon their search and retreat to the Webway. This decision cost the regular Truskan companies dearly, as the Orcs took advantage of Rinne's abandonment of the field. It was only the actions of Alexander Taggart that salvaged the campaign. After brutally punishing the regiment and inflicting horrible losses, the Orcs, with their air support crushed, were finally obliterated by Taggart's carpet-bombing campaigns, which lasted a week. In the closing years of the 41st millennium, like thousands of other regiments, the now weakened 131st was called toward the Eye of Terror to defend against Abaddon's 13th Black Crusade. Despite their prior experience with chaos, the Frost Rangers were instead assigned to intercept Drukhari raiding parties who were attempting to take advantage of the quite literal chaos in order to steal away slaves. Initially, they were met with surprising success, outmaneuvering the Drukhari on several planets. They rescued thousands of captured slaves from being taken to a horrific fate in Komarog and doubtless prevented even more from being taken. However, it was not to last. The Drukhari are nothing if not devious, and in 999 M41, the 131st Truskan were finally thoroughly outmaneuvered in a Drukhari counterattack. Their positions were overrun and their brilliant snipers were forced to fight a desperate close-quarters battle. Colonel Rinne had no choice but to order the execution of all the liberated Drukhari prisoners to save them from recapture and blood-curdling torture. On the fields of Tavata 4, the Frost Rangers were broken and nearly annihilated. Colonel Rinne surveyed the field, realizing that he, and no other, was to blame for this carnage. He had been the one who'd sapped his own regiments to chase a tertiary enemy, and now they lacked the strength to fight for the Emperor when it mattered far more. Calling upon his old friend Alexander Taggart one last time, Colonel Rinne called out to the Drukhari Archon on the field and ran to face him in single combat. The Archon, amused, slowly, painfully, but easily cut Rinne to ribbons. Rinne was able to deliver but a single blow, slashing into the Archon's leg with his chainsword and spitting in his face. Outraged, the Drukhari warlord prepared to torture Rinne in the field, but he would never get the chance. The Archon and the Colonel were struck down by Taggart's last Hellstrike missile, as Lauri intended. The last remaining survivors of the 131st were evacuated by Taggart and the 752nd Air Support Operations Group, numbering only a few hundred. The Drukhari also made their escape to the Webway, dragging many screaming Truskans with them, though, ultimately, far fewer humans than they had originally collected. One of the only surviving officers of the campaign, Rakel Sari, was promoted to colonel and made the new regimental commander in 001 M42. Group Captain Taggart pushed hard with the Imperial Navy and was ultimately allowed to keep his group attached to the 131st. Colonel Rakel Sari returned the regiment to Trusk to rebuild it nearly from scratch. And rebuild it she did, with tens of thousands of Truskan tribesmen eager to join the celebrated regiment. The regiment's growing renown on Trusk led it to become larger than it had been ever before. Now, as the galaxy grows even darker in the 42nd millennium, the Truskan Frost Rangers continue their fight for the Emperor and his Imperium wherever and whenever called. Colonel Sari begins to develop a reputation as a brilliant tactician and strategist, a worthy successor to Lauri Rinne. She has even been known to personally have led Frost Ranger kill teams. Whether crusading against the endless tides of orcs, striking Drukhari raiders in vengeful ambushes, or even standing against Tau expansionism, the 131st Truskan Frost Rangers fight on, from the highest mountain peaks to the coldest tundras, and there have been no shortage of the Emperor's enemies to fall within their targeting sights.